Hello, I'm Dani, and today I'm gonna give you some book recommendations that includes royalty because today it's Queen Margaret II of Denmark's 80th birthday. So I thought it would be fitting to talk a little bit about books that are featuring around royalty or includes royalty in any sort of way. So let's start. Now, first, let's talk about some dystopian novels. In general, I haven't found many dystopians that contains royalty, but I do have two recommendations for you if it's something you're interested in. Now, first is the selection by Kiera Cass, and this is. I've heard a lot of people say this is more like a guilty pleasure reading, and it is definitely kind of a fun plot. So basically, the story is about this world where people are putting into categories at birth. So if your parents are living in a certain place in the hierarchy, you're destined to be the same. However, if you marry someone below you in the hierarchy, you will contain their status. So in general, it can be a good thing to marry in the same hierarchy. Now, the problem with this is that there's not much freedom as to what to do with your work. So, for example, if you're in one of the lower hierarchies that are supposed to be teachers or servants, and you want to be a painter or an artist, you can't do that because it is illegal. But there's one condition to this whole setup, and that is if you marry a prince. So, of course, the highest in the hierarchy in this world is the royalties. And there's a tradition in this kingdom that whenever a prince or princess, I believe, is going to find someone to marry, there will be hosted this competition, kind of like The Bachelor or Bachelorette. So the girls of age can send in an application to participate in this competition, and then someone would be selected to go to the castle. I don't remember how many there are, but I believe it's like in the 20s girls at first, and normally these girls come from some of the higher hierarchies or levels in the hierarchy. But in this particular instance, our main character, America, is pretty low down, and that's extremely rare to be chosen, but she is, and she's kind of battling on whether to go or not because she does have a boyfriend, but she knows she'll probably not be allowed to marry him since he is below her. So in the end, he convinces her to go and do this in order to get a better life. And yeah, she goes, and basically the story is the setup of dates and her meeting the prince and the royal family. And that's basically it. It's a really fun read, I would say, and I do like some of the characters. There are some things in the books I didn't really care for, like the classic love triangle. I was just not interested. But basically, yeah, the dystopian part is that the king is being attacked by rebels, and I believe later on, people from different hierarchies are trying to destroy the idea that you have to stay in your lane throughout your entire life. So it's kind of battling. I don't know what it's called in English. The direct translation from Danish is social heritage. So basically, if you're born into a low income family in the real world, the probabilities of you making a better life for yourself is less than if you're born into a wealthy family. Now I do know that that's kind of challenging the American dream, but it's a thing in the world. So, but yeah, so if you're looking for like a romance about royalties and pretty dresses and a girl who's not like other girls, but I would say in a good way. It's not one of those obnoxious things. And really all about, it contains a lot about the females in the competition, like how they interact and the friendships, and if they really want to be that close friends because they're all competing for the same prize. But yeah, there's also like rose ceremonies, and yeah, it's really fun. So the second dystopian on this list is The Bells, which is a duology by Donella Clayton, I believe she's called. But yeah, I will say though, before I explain what it's about, I really, really enjoyed the first installment. The second one I didn't care that much for, and I've seen that that's like the general consensus between people who read them. But there's talk about there being a third book, so we'll see. But basically, The Bells is about the society where people, they put everything on being beautiful. So there are these bells that basically have the power to alter a person's look and appearance, everything from skin color to waist size to height, facial shape. I even believe they can do some personality stuff. But yeah, it's kind of creepy that way. But the book follows one of the bells whose biggest goal is that when she's chosen for where she's gonna work or serve, she wants to be the chosen one, the highest bell who gets to serve the queen and the royal family. And so they have this competition in the beginning of the book where all the bells get to show their abilities, and then someone is chosen. And then it sort of goes on from there, her kind of discovering what's actually going on within the castle and the land in general, and how the whole system might be wrong, that there shouldn't kind of be a certain way to look. And it's very much a commentary on people's obsessions about changing their appearances and also going overboard. So in that way, it's really, really interesting. Again, I would say I think the first book was really good. It was very memorable to me, and I would actually consider rereading it, but the second one just didn't do it for me. And I think it's because there was kind of this like runaway, so they were always on the move, and no, it's just not not the greatest. But I will say, if you're looking for a dystopian with some royalty and discussion about beauty ideals, I think this will be a great way to go. So I think one of the places there the most royalty represented is in the fantasy genre. So I'm gonna give you some from there, and I have two that contains fae. So I'm gonna start with those. Actually, they're by the same author. So, but the first is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a trilogy about a girl who's very poor, and she is hunting in order to support her family and feed them, kind of like the Hunger Games. And then one day she accidentally kills a wolf who is actually a fae in disguise. So in their world, there was a great war that separated the fae kingdom with the human kingdom, but a fae had gone through that wall and she killed it. So later, there's suddenly this creepy guy who shows up at her house, and he's taking her with him, because that's apparently what they do if you kill a fae. But yeah, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So the fae that comes to collect her is wearing a mask, and I believe it's everyone in the kingdom is like forced to wear these masks because of a prophecy or some sort of magic thing. I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, she goes to this fae country, and yeah, imagine Beauty and the Beast, but with the face. I will say that I do have mixed feelings about this series, but it is very popular and in the book community, which is why I read it, because I wanted to know what all the hype was about. It does contain smut throughout, but I will say I did like some of the characters and the character developments. I think I preferred the second book, which I don't know if that's like an unpopular opinion, but the second book was great for me. The third one I think was what kind of ruined it. But yeah, if you're looking for some Fae royalty retelling, this may be a good pick. So the next Fae royalty fantasy is Throne of Glass, again by Sarah J. Maas. And this is about an assassin, a female assassin who's about the age of 16. And a few years before the book starts, one of her friends and colleagues got murdered, and that developed into her being captured and sent to this camp, like concentration camp kind of thing. And then the beginning of the book, she's picked up by the prince because he has chosen her to be his champion in this competition his father, the king, has set up. So she is traveling with the prince back to the kingdom where she is trained to essentially kill all the other participants. And then whoever wins get to be the champion and work for the king. And then if she wins and do the years she's going to be hired for, she will later on attain her freedom. So that's kind of her motivation to go through with it. So yeah, that's basically the gist of the first book. The Fae does not appear until later on when she goes to another country. I don't know if that's a spoiler. But yeah, I think she's a really kick-ass protagonist. I will say in the beginning, I was kind of worried because she was talking a lot about, oh, my body has changed and I don't have the figure I used to, and oh, I miss my pretty dresses. And I considered, like, if this is gonna continue, I'm not gonna be able to finish this book. But it did really get really great, and there's like mysteries, and especially because magic has disappeared from the realm. So the weird instances, they don't know how they can happen without magic. But yeah, it's a great book, contains a lot of friendship, and I'm still reading through the series. It's quite a long series, so if you want to know more of my thoughts, I have read, I think it's the 4th and 5th I will read in my Owls vlogs that will hopefully be up soon, some of them. So yeah, but I will say I really did enjoy the first 3 books in this series, so now we'll just see how I feel about the rest. So the next series, fantasy series that contain royalty, is The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. And this book is again about a separated nation. Basically, there are red people and then there's silver people. So the red people are the commoners, and they live very poor. And then if you have silver blood, you are magical. And of course, the royal family has silver blood, and the other courts or head of houses. So yeah, the series of the book follows this female character who's named Mare Burrow, I believe she's called. She steals in order to support her family. I feel like we have a theme about females trying to, yeah, basically survive. But yes, she steals in order to provide for her family, and one day she accidentally steals from a person from the royal family. And in order to like repay, he gets her a job. There's this competition where different daughters from other high up houses are going to compete and show their magic abilities, and then the best one is going to be engaged to the royal prince. And by accident, Mare falls over into this arena and she hits like this safety net, and yeah, it's kind of discovers that she may have some powers even though she has red blood. So the story really continues from there. The royal family is really scared and don't know how to contain the information, because if it is known that the poor people, the red people, do have power, maybe they will rebel. So she's basically engaged to his younger brother and is forced to live on the castle. So yeah, I will say I really enjoyed this book. I felt it was kind of dystopian in many ways with the rebellion, but of course it contains magical abilities, so it is considered a fantasy. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of emotions against some of the love triangle things I didn't care that much for. But I would say that the villain of the story is really interesting, and it's a fun read. So if you're looking for, you know, girl power, corruption, rebellion, this may be it for you. So the next book I'm going to talk about is the series Vampire Academy. And the reason why it contains royalty is because the main character is kind of a security guard for a princess of the vampire people. But basically, these like security guards are a mix of vampire blood and human blood. So if a vampire mates with a human, they create these people who are not vampires but do have extra power and can protect vampires from strigoi, which are, again, it is, you understand it when you read it, but strigoi are basically vampires gone bad. They basically become strigoi if they kill a person when they're feeding, and if they do so, they get crazy and bloodthirsty and want to kill the vampires. But yeah, the book starts with the two main characters having escaped from the academy. We're not really told why, but they are captured and brought back, and it follows them trying to figure out what actually happened in the years they've been gone, and kind of remember why everything went bad. The main character Rose, who's the guard, starts to train with this handsome, cute teacher. So yeah, this may be a spoiler, but there are some romantic tensions between her and an adult. So if you're not really into that, don't read this. But yeah, I basically read it because I saw the movie that was made, and I thought I would give it a go. And again, I'll say I really enjoyed the first 3 books in the series. And then it kind of took a turn. And I would say the only reason I ended up completing this series was because I'm a completionist. So I felt like I had to see if it would redeem itself, and it did not. But that's my opinion. If you feel differently, that's totally fine. But if you're into some vampire, again, female, kick-ass, you should try to read this. Now, the next book I'm going to talk about is an adult fantasy, and it is a long series. There's some chunky books, but it is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. And of course, there's the TV series. I think everybody has heard of that. But this is the first book in the series. This is a Danish edition, that's why it's maybe look weird. But yeah, this series is basically about Westeros. That is this kingdom divided in 7, and in every part, in every 7 of those, there are kind of like a mayor person who controls the area but still answers to the king. And the book begins with the Stark family, who lives in the north, and the king, who is really great friends with the head of the house there, is coming to ask him to be the hand of the king and travel back to the castle with him. And then stuff starts to happen, conspiracy theories, and the king dies, and basically people start dying. everybody dies. There's literally a phrase in this series that means every man must die. And I think that's kind of what set up the TV series and also the book series, where the people were so surprised that some characters that would normally not get killed off in a series, George R. R. Martin did that. But yeah, it's a book where you really have to concentrate because there are a lot of names, a lot of characters, a lot of people. Basically, it is, I believe George R. R. Martin has said once that he did write this book in this way in order for it to never be able to be adapted because it was so complex. But eventually it did, and we're very thankful. Just, I do not acknowledge season 8, personally. That should not have happened. Sorry. If you've seen the TV show and want to give the books a try, I will highly recommend it. I feel it is a lot easier reading the books after seeing the TV show because you know a lot of the characters. Of course, there's more in here, but a lot of the main characters and the characters that are really important you've already heard of, so it's easier to remember how they fit into the narrative. And yeah, I'm almost done with the series, so let's hope he will soon publish the next one. I do believe he has said that since this whole thing in the world happened, he will spend more time at home writing, so fingers crossed. So the last fantasy series I'm gonna talk about is actually a Danish fantasy series, and I am including this because I have read more Danish fantasy series than this with royalty, but I am positive that this has been translated, so if you're not Danish, you will be able to read it as well. But it is, I have 2 books. There are 4 books in the series, but these are bind-ups, and they're really, really pretty. I'm just gonna hold up the first because it's a lot. But yeah, basically, this is The Shamer's Daughter by Lena Kavabull. Yes, difficult even for a Danish person to pronounce. But this book is about a girl who is born as a shamer. Now, a shamer is a person who, when looking into a person's eyes, can see everything they've ever done they're ashamed of. Frightening, I know. She inherited this from her mother, so it is a family thing, and only the females of the family get this ability. So basically this young girl is very alone because when she was younger she accidentally looked into the eyes of one of her friends, so everybody's scared of her and her mom. So she's very isolated and very much close to her family. Then one day someone from the royal family, or a servant of the royal family, comes to fetch her mother because she has to help them figure out what happened when someone from the royal family was murdered. So her mama goes with him, and then at some point someone comes to fetch the daughter as well. Her name is Dina. It's been a while since I read it, but yeah, it comes to collect Dina because her mom needs help. And then when she arrives at the castle, she figures out that not everything is what it seems, and they may not say their whole truth when they came to fetch her. So yeah, it's basically about Dina trying to escape the castle and the people who are hunting her, and at some point she's going to help the prince, and help him again, protect him, escape, and figure out what happened. So yeah, it contains dragons, and it's really interesting, like how the magic works and how she is really scared to get recognized, and then in the later books more and more things will happen. But yeah, I loved this as a child, and then I got these copies for my birthday a few years back, and I have reread them like twice since, and I'm still a huge fan of them. So if you want to expand your fantasy reading, may consider going for a Danish author. It is called The Shamer's Daughter in English, so yeah, check it out. Now, the last two books we're going to talk about is in the contemporary genre. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins. Now, originally this book was titled Royals, but it got both a title change and a cover change, and I would say it really helped. The book also has a continuation that's called Her Royal Highness, I believe, but I haven't read that book. But I am planning on, hopefully soon, especially because it contains a queer character, at least I'm told. So yeah, even though I haven't read both of them, I would highly recommend both because they are really talked greatly about on BookTube, and most people I've seen that has read both book enjoys both of them, and I do believe that the second one is more loved than the first. But I'm only going to talk about the first one because that's the only one I have read. So yeah, the first book is about Daisy Winters, who's an American girl, but her sister has gotten engaged to the Crown Prince of Scotland. And because of a lot of tabloids coverage and following of Daisy, she is sent to her sister in Scotland, where she's going to live until the wedding. And here she starts hanging out with the Crown Prince's younger brother, who's kind of a troublemaker. And the story kind of goes on from there. She attends public events, yeah, and trained to be the perfect little sister of the soon-to-be Princess of Scotland. But yeah, it's a really fun read, and it was a fun romance, and I do highly recommend it. Yeah, there are a lot of great quirky characters, and it does set up this difference because Daisy believes that her sister is like this perfect person that she can't live up to, especially, you know, being engaged to the Crown Prince. So yeah, it really also contains their relationship, and yeah, I highly recommend it if it's something you're into. So the last book I'm gonna talk about, I actually only recently finished. It's a highly loved book, especially of last year, and it is a queer contemporary, and it is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, this book, it's so good. I do understand why some people don't like it, but I really, really love this book. So basically, this book is about the first son of the President of the United States, a female President of the United States, and the other character is the Royal Prince of England. It's Alex is American and Henry is the British guy. I forgot their names for a second. But yeah, these two are kind of enemies. Especially Alex is not a big fan of the prince. But the book starts out with Alex and his family going to Henry's older brother's royal wedding. And he and Henry kind of gets into a fight, and they end up ruining the 75,000 pound wedding cake. And in order to deflect the bad media, the two are forced into this fake friendship because they want the public and the media to believe that these are old friends. So they suddenly have to spend time with each other. And then some romantic things starts to happen, which I don't think is a spoiler at this point. But yeah, it's basically about responsibility and being there for your family while also being true to yourself. And again, there's a lot of great friendships in here, a lot of great family dynamics, and it's just really good. Yeah, I would highly recommend it if you're into some escapism at these times and you do like a good romance. I do understand some of the critics of this is the unlikeliness of it, and people think it's very Wattpad, AU fanfic. And I would agree to that to a certain extent, but But I really enjoyed this. And again, let's talk about there's nothing bad about being a Wattpad story. There are some great stories on that page, on that site. So yeah, this will be my final recommendation for royalty rap in a book. So that was it for my book recommendations. This is the first book recommendation videos I've made, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Bye.